Welcome to Mr. Mitsubishi here YouTube channel that's designated to a lot of Outlander stuff and a lot of Mitsubishi stuff. Today we'll have a look at lease versus finance option, which one is better, what are the actual differences, and we're actually going to have a look at real life example with real numbers, real MSRPs, real residual values, and real programs. Mitsubishi sends out new programs to dealerships every month, and based on that we can determine exact payments and everything else. So we'll be using the current programs for this video. So by the way, thank you so much for all the 7,000 subscribers to this channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Help the channel grow, it'll help a lot. So we're in a classroom here. Essentially, we'll have a look at numbers. Like I mentioned before, it'll be real numbers on real MSRPs and real programs that we have for this month. So say you found your perfect vehicle, you found your Outlander, you love it. Now it's just a matter of how do you want to pay for it. And there's essentially three options. You can pay cash for everything, you can do the finance, or you can do the lease. So cash is quite simple. You pay all the money and then you walk away. But there's good couple ways how to go about lease versus finance, and maybe choose one or the other depending what suits the better for you. So we will look at example of a fully loaded Mitsubishi Outlander GTP with a premium upgraded interior. So the MSRP is $44,528. Might be a little bit less, a little bit more depending on which color you choose. Also, for sake of this example, we're not adding any like dealer fees that could possibly be there, any accessories that could be on the car, anything like that. So just straight up MSRP. This includes freight and PDI already. And now let's have a look how it all works out. Okay, so now let's check out some numbers. Before we dig deeper into these numbers, I just want to let you know that these programs that we have right now, they're only for Western Canada, and those programs are for March of 2022. So if you're watching this video down the road, or you're in a dealership in Toronto, they won't be able to honor what we're talking about here. However, these principles work about the same every single month. Like there might be a little bit differences on model year changes, right? But just keep that in mind, okay? Now, when it comes to which option is better, lease or finance, there's no one correct answer. It's very personal based, basically, what you prefer, what kind of circumstances you're in, whatnot. So there are some positives and negatives for each option, which we're going to cover after this part in this video. But now let's have a look at this. So basically, the numbers are as follows. So MSRP $44,528. On finance, we take this number, we add all tax, and then you have $49,871. That's the entire amount that you're borrowing from the bank, and you're basically liable for the entire amount, right? And then people seem to stretch all the payments as long as possible to reduce the monthly payment. If we do 84 months and 3.49 interest rate, your payment is going to be $671 all in. So this includes your interest, your taxes, everything else. So you end up having this payment if you go with the finance. If you do go on lease side of things, you're making your tax payment only on your payments, so you don't prepay the entire tax, which is one of the biggest differences between finance and lease. Here you pay the entire tax when you buy the vehicle. If you lease it, you pay only tax on the payment each month, and you can stretch it to 60 months at 3.99, 20,000 kilometer a year allocation, which seems to be what average Canadian is driving. And in this case, with your payment of $545 plus tax, that will land you $609 all in with taxes and everything else. So we can see that, if we take the terms, yes, this is 7 years, this is 5 years, but you're achieving a little bit less payment in lease side of things, right? So now, at the end of the term, you have what's called the residual value, and then once your 5-year term is up, you basically have three options what to do with your residual value and what to do with the vehicle, which we will cover next. Okay, so once your lease term is up, you have this residual value of $18,554 plus tax. Essentially, the residual value is like whatever would be the MSRP, and then you chip it away that amount every month that you do the monthly payment, and this is what's left. Like I mentioned before, with lease scenario, you always pay the tax only on that payment. So that's one of the biggest differences between the lease and finance. So at the end of the term, you have this 18,554 plus tax, and you have three options basically what to do with. You can just walk away with the lease, assuming that you did not go over your mileage, the vehicle is good shape and everything else. You can just come back to the dealer, give them the keys essentially, and that's it. You can buy out the vehicle, so you can come with a check to the dealership, pay the tax on your residual amount, and then you can own your vehicle outright. Or you can talk to your dealer and you can refinance what's left here, right? So at this point, you'll have a 5-year-old vehicle. You should be able to get 4, 5, 6 year term. And then you can just put this into another financing and do the monthly payments already on this all-in tax amount, right? So those are your options when it comes to the actual lease end. Now, let's have a look at something else. So each option, finance and lease, has their positives and has their negatives. And that might kind of, put a little bit in perspective if you're thinking about leasing versus financing, which option should you choose for yourself? And now let's cover some positives and negatives about each option, lease or finance. Like I mentioned before, there's no one correct answer. Each way has its benefits and drawbacks. So let's start with finance. So there are three major positives with the finance: once and done. So you basically come to the dealership, you pay for the whole amount, they finance you for the entire term, you forget about it. There's a lot of people out there who don't like the idea of leasing coming in at certain times. They just want to get that vehicle financed and move on with their lives, right? So that's a very good thing. Second one, eventually you own the vehicle. So once you have the vehicle for your length of time, you paid off your bank loan, you actually own your vehicle. So that's your own vehicle. So it's an asset for you. Number three would be it's easy to trade and sell. So basically you just need to call up the bank, clean the loan, or you come to the dealership. It's the easiest thing in the world to trade in the vehicle if you still have some money owing on your vehicle, right? Some negatives would be you pay entire tax up front, right? So it's again one of those things when you get it, you automatically finance the tax on it as well. Then negative would be you're exposed to value loss, which you're not in a lease scenario. So let's say, I don't know, your vehicle gets in a big accident and you repaired it, but it's still not perfect, or for some reason, it turns out that the value goes down a lot on your vehicle, and then you're kind of stuck with that vehicle forever, basically, in that scenario, right? Or you're taking a loss of some sort at some point. The third negative would be people seem to be more often tempted to trade, which a lot of times is not a bad thing, but we've seen the scenarios when you trade too much and it just adds your negative equity because you just keep borrowing more and more and more money against your vehicle. If you're financed, your mentality is that, hey, I can do everything I want at any given time, and you don't have any 7 or 5 or 4 year term in your mind that you have to stick with. So in your mind, you can do whatever you want, and maybe you're tempted to not make a very smart decision by trading in if you don't really have to, right? So it's kind of harder to resist that temptation when the new model year comes out. So cool. So that will be for the finance part. Now let's have a look at the lease, right? So again, there's some 3 major positives and 3 kind of negatives about the lease. The positive would be always drive a new car. So especially if you choose a shorter terms of 2-3 years, right? So you'll be always in a new car. Your neighbors will think you're the richest guy around because you seemingly always have new cars. The other thing, you only pay tax on the payment, right? Some people just don't like to pay taxes and they want to do like rich people does, they just don't want to pay tax, avoid tax at all costs. So this way you're just paying the tax on your payment and you don't pay the whole thing at once. The third good option is you have many options at the end. So you have those 3 options that we talked about previously, right? So you can keep your vehicle, you can buy it out if you set some money aside. Then you can finance the whole thing on low payments, or you can just walk away, right? And that walk away option is excellent if you, let's say, if the vehicle has depreciated or you maybe had a big accident on it, you just don't want to keep that vehicle away, right? You do have those options here at the end of the term, which you don't have with finance. With finance, you just stuck with the vehicle, it's yours. Any type of depreciation, you're paying for it. Here, you just walk away and Mitsubishi pays for it, don't tell them that. So then there's like 3 negatives on the lease as well. At the end of the day, you don't own any asset, right? So you're paying, and it's in a way like a rental, right? So you just every month you pay for the car. The term is up, you just get the next lease, then the next lease, and the next lease, right? So again, depends on your mentality. Some people like to own something at the end of the day. Some people don't care. If you don't care, this is the way to go. But if you do care, this is going to be negative for you. There are kilometer or mileage restrictions on the vehicle and the time, right? So you're going to be, let's say, restricted to 5 years, 100,000 kilometers, or 2 years, 40, right? So you got to kind of like time the timing and then watch for the kilometers. Sometimes your life situation might change. Say you think, okay, I'll be good with 20,000 kilometers. Then you move further out, or like, you know, you get a different job and all of a sudden you need more kilometers, and then at the end of the day there's penalty for extra kilometers if you put them on. And if you don't want to be in that situation, it's going to be a negative for you. Okay. A third one is going to be, it's fairly complicated to break the lease because lease relationship goes with yourself, the dealership, and the manufacturer. If you go and want to do like a different brand or different vehicle, then to do that transaction is going to be fairly complicated. In reality, it's not that hard, but to get through everybody and get that handled, and especially maybe if you've been dealing with a salesperson or a company that does not have experience with that, it can be a very frustrating process, right? So again, so this kind of summarizes some positives and negatives about each situation. Like I mentioned before, there's no one thing, there's no right thing what to do. In this case, you know, based on that information, you can make a decision. My personal favorite is always lease because I like to, you know, be in the new vehicles all the time. I like that option at the end of the term. But there's a lot of people who want finance. Just give me the finance. That's always what I've done, and I'm happy with that. Nothing wrong with it as well. So there's no best option. There's no second best option. It's literally situational. Depending on your situation, you just pick and choose what works the best for you on the 2022 Outlander lease or finance option. So thank you so much for watching the video. I hope this was helpful, and we'll get you'll find it handy at some time. So thank you for watching, and on to the next video.